Awaken to your truth that you are the I Am presence in harmony with the divine. You are consciousness beyond what the body and mind identify. This is Moment to Moment. Host Lynda Hope will remind and enlighten you to know your divine nature. You were born into the body already aware, but forgot it as you expanded your sense of identity, ego mind, pattern behaviors, and habits. Stop sleepwalking and wake up to your timeless, eternal, formless self. Now, your host of Moment to Moment, Lynda Hope.
Well, welcome everyone. Obviously, that's not Lynda Hope, but I'm Sharon Berkowitz, along with my husband, Stephen Berkowitz. And I want to welcome everyone to Moment on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. So Lynda Hope is on vacation today, and she'll be back with us next week. So we are broadcasting live from the big island of Hawaii. So welcome. I would like to introduce my husband and co-host, Stephen, and he is a Swami. His name is Sri Dahar Ananda, which means he brings prosperity to all he comes in contact with. We could all use some of that, right? His grandfather in his lineage is Yogananda. Stephen studied Qigong with the Grand Master, Master Lo. He is a Reiki and Corona Reiki master and studied A Course in Miracles for 30 years. Just to name a few of his modalities. Now, if you were to ask him about these modalities, he would say, it's just part of the story. And because it's part of the story, there are no real consequences. So today, we'll be talking about oneness consciousness and what is our true purpose. And welcome, Stephen.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Really, it's an honor and a privilege. And I'm really looking forward to an exciting hour. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, we talk about oneness consciousness, and some people may not understand really what that lingo means. So would you be so kind to explain to us about oneness?
Okay, oneness. Okay, oneness means one. Not two, not three, not four. Okay, oneness has no polarity. See, oneness represents all that is and ever was. This is like Brahman, Source, God, Atman, the light. You see, and oneness is knowing that the separation never occurred. And there's nothing, everything is contained within the one. There are many aspects of this oneness, but it's all one. We are one.
And when you say we are one, what are we not separate from?
We're not separate from anything. Everything is in us. See, we're not apart from anything. Everything is within us. So no matter what you're looking at, the universe, clouds, the earth, everything is within our consciousness.
And so when we talk about consciousness, there are different varieties and levels of consciousness. And so what does that mean? Because then we're going to put those two words together, oneness, consciousness.
Well, when you're talking about consciousness, depending on how you use the word, it implies duality. Okay, because there's higher consciousness, there's lower consciousness, there's poverty consciousness, victim consciousness. It could be any kind of consciousness at all. But each one of those consciousness is in the world because you're identifying with something. But then there's an expression to say, to know the truth is you have to learn the untruths. So you learn an untruth here, an untruth there, and it brings you closer and closer to the truth, which is there's only one of us.
Because otherwise, when we understand, we talk about like ego consciousness, that's more being in the mind, more of an identity. And so what does that mean that when we're actually, the ego's mind is a victim of illusion?
Well, word ego implies is fear-based. And the two things about the ego, as you've said before many times on your shows, is the ego is fear-based and doesn't want to lose anything. So your five senses distract us from everything. And actually, that's the biggest trickster of all, because the five senses are all based on the ego and they're finite. See, oneness refers to something that's infinite.
Indeed. Because when we talk about infinite or cosmic consciousness, that's beyond the senses, beyond the mind, beyond duality. So for our listeners, can you talk about like what is that is opposite of oneness? Because sometimes, like you said, to know the untruths will help us to recognize and discover the truths.
Okay, the opposite of oneness is a 3D reality that we're living in. Now, we believe that let's talk about our purpose. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. Our purpose in a 3D reality is when you're born, all that you really need to do is food and affection and love. So at every stage of your life, there's a different purpose and a different need to do. Maybe when you're going to school, or let's say it's sports or dancing, that's your purpose, to be a dancer, to be an athlete. Or when you want to do something, this is what you want more than anything in your life. And you say, this is my dharma. And all of this stuff is about purposes, and your stories change. So your purpose changes from 1 to 91. And because it changes, it's not about one. Something that's one is one and never changes. Matter of fact, let's define what oneness is. Okay, close your eyes for a minute and imagine something that has no beginning, no end. It's single, it's unity, it's consciousness, it's awareness, and it's bliss. Okay, open your eyes. And when I say bliss or happiness, we all think we experience bliss or happiness, but this is different. This is what we call a state of happiness or a state of bliss. This is a place when there's no ups, there's no down. No matter what happens, you're always in this bliss or happiness. Some people would call it being in the world, not of the world. So whatever happens around you has no meaning, because everything that's happened is supposed to happen.
Right, because everything, we can point to things outside of ourselves and think it's about something else, but really the real work is the inner work. It's the going within, it's self-inquiry. It's not pointing the finger to say, oh, that happened and that happened. And yes, we're not saying that it did not happen, but the idea is to go within yourself and to recognize and realize, how are you really feeling about that, of what happened? Asking yourself, who am I? Who is this? Who's this happening to? Who? So who's the who is what they say. And what it is that knowing that when you want to do that oneness consciousness, is that your breath work is really important. Just taking that deep breath. I know right after Stephen, you did that little meditation, I just wanted to take a deep breath within and just kind of breathe that in and recognize that. So thank you.
Everything you're saying is so profound and so great. And it's so simple to say, but it's so significant. If we could just remember what Sharon just said, there is no outer work, because it's never about a person, place, or thing. Never. It's always about going in and pointing the finger like this. And that's what it's all about. So if we can remember that wherever we're projecting out there, it's never about that. And the answer to everything, like Sharon said, is going within. For me, it's taking a deep breath and becoming still and silent. And then when I become still and silent, I go beyond my mind and I do that self-inquiring and I say, who's the who? Or whatever I see out there, it's not really what's happening. It's what's superficial. You have to go underneath and underneath, underneath. And you say, why is that happening? What is this all about? What lesson do I need to learn? What is it? Because everything is happening for us. So many of us think, why me? Why this? And do you think it's about someone else? But everything is such a blessing. So the answer to everything is please and thank you. Yes and thank you. So whatever it is, no matter what it is, that's always a lesson. So really what you said was so profound. Thank you, Sharon.
And I like that too, because, part of it is being grateful for things that are happening, even though you can't really see in gratitude at times. Oh, how can I be thankful for that disease? Or how can I be thankful for this happening to a friend of mine? But what it is that when you can at least have stillness and quiet your mind and not have all that monkey chatter that could be going on and moving you in this direction or that direction. And again, going outside of yourself, pointing to something that's out there. But by going within and just being grateful at the moment and then seeing what arises, seeing what comes from that. Because a lot of things that we do is we are superimposing. We're putting it onto something else that's outside. And I share with you too, that in Hawaii, for example, a friend was visiting the island and said, come on over here. And they're across the street. And he's like, no, I'm not going to come across the street. There's a snake there. There's a snake in the middle of the street. And, the guy said, no, it's not a snake. Come on over. It's okay. And the guy just repeated, no, I can't. I'm fearful of snakes. He goes, well, how about if I come over and we'll go across together and we'll discover this. So he goes across the street, takes the guy by the hand and says, okay, let's go. We're going to go across the street. So the guy reluctantly goes and starts moving forward. And what they realized and what they discovered, that it really wasn't a snake, but it was a piece of rope. And in that noticing of what it was just like a sense of relief. It's like, well, that was a dream. That was something that he dreamt up. He made it real. He had a misperception. And by having that misperception, then he created his own reality in that and how he felt. Like he was maybe perspiring. Maybe he was feeling frustrated that he didn't want to go across the street. He was just in fear. And it appeared real. It's something that seems to be real. But once we're in that discovery and we recognize that, it kind of loses what it was holding us attached to. We were holding attached to that being a snake and everything that came along with that, like a bundle of attachments, so to speak. And when we can let go of it and surrender that, then we're becoming more of our true self. And Stephen, can you speak more about that, about oneness consciousness and being the true self?
Well, being your true self is all that's really real. Everything else is an illusion or mythia. And you said some really significant things in there too. You're talking about language and talking. The language of God, the universe, is silence. So when we can stop talking or projecting out there and go, another thing you said is go inside and self-inquire, take your deep breath, whatever you need to do, and just go within and saying, who am I? Why am I here? And as far as oneness consciousness is really about continue to say, who am I? Who's the who? Why am I here? What's it all about? So always remind, no matter what the situation is, it really doesn't make any difference. The answer is always to say, why is this happening? What can I learn from this? What's underneath? And take that deep breath and go beyond that and say, none of it has any importance because it's all transient. Anything that's transient, anything that has polarity, anything that has duality is of a 3D nature. So the point is always, always, always go back to the oneness and realize who you are beyond the mind. And when you go beyond the mind, there is no problem, there is no issue, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to say. Now, it's easy to say this, but when you go to this place, it's all there is. And this is what we need to remind ourselves always, just to go back into self-inquiring and saying, who am I? And go take that deep breath and go within. So thank you.
Yes, it's wonderful. But knowing too that everything passes, everything moves. What we perceive out in the world, it moves, it changes, it does have a beginning or an end, even like a blissful experience.
Right. They say that the expression is, this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, things that appear to us, Like we say, the sun rises and the sun sets, and the sun is moving across the sky, and then there's high noon. And really what's happening is that the sun, is it really moving? No, the sun is stationary, and the earth is really what moves around the sun. So again, that's like an appearance. It's like something that we're making to be real outside of us. It appears that way. We think it's something. We give it meaning or a value. And because we have value and meanings to things, we also maybe have judgments. And as soon as you have a judgment or a comparison to something, what's happening then? Then you're in your ego identity, because you're participating in what we call the illusion, like Stephen mentioned, the mythia, And so when we see that and we realize, oh, that was just, an illusion, but what was it really showing me? If you really do want to dig deeper, you could ask that. Or, something is ailing you, like you have a cramp in your foot, or if you have broken an arm or broken a leg, for example, what were you thinking at the time that it happened? In other words, oh my gosh, what was really going on in your mind, your mind's eye? And just remember that everything going on in the mind could be a projection from a thought, from an idea. And so, Stephen, what can you say about going back to the consciousness that we're all in? You said we have many levels of consciousness, and how can we be more in that oneness?
Well, there's lots of ways. I mean, here's some techniques. It's always about realizing that whatever it is, to let go of resistance. Mm-hmm. Because whenever you're in resistance, that's where your mind goes. It goes into a loop, and it goes over and over and over again. And the more you think about it, the bigger and bigger it gets. Well, let me share something too that reminds me about superimposition. Okay, imagine, again, if you choose, close your eyes or not. Imagine that everything all around you is white. Now, above, below, on the right, and the left, deeper and deeper. If you go 1,000 miles, all there is white. So white is all there is. And this white is who you are. It's unconditional love. And that's all you are. So nothing else exists. There's nothing on it. Now, all of a sudden, you have a thought with an attachment. And that's superimposed onto this whiteness. And let's say it's a dark speck. And if you just let it pay, and all that's left is this white. Because even this speck, whether it's anger, a judgment, control, thought, it wasn't real to begin with. Because by definition, all that there is white. And all that there is love. So if you have any other thought other than love, it's superimposed onto what is. And what is who you really are. Now, if that speck, and you start thinking about it, because that's what we tend to do. We start thinking about something negative. And the more we think about it, the bigger and bigger it gets. Even though it's like a grain of sand, we keep thinking about it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have another thought and another thought and another thought. And you keep thinking about all these different thoughts. And what happens to the white, the love, it seems to disappear. Even though it can never disappear, because that's all that's real. Everything else is an illusion. So you keep seeing it. And this is what we do in our life. We keep having these thoughts, where identification, whatever these things are, and they keep getting bigger and bigger. So then there's ways that, if you take these specks and you dissolve them and you put them into your heart, and then you say, it's not real. All that's real is love. Who am I? And you take these individual thoughts and you put them into your heart, and you hold them into your heart, and you let them dissolve. And then you realize that all there is love. And that's what we need to do every day of our life, 5, 10, 50, 100 times a day, until it becomes a natural patterning of, and that's who we really are. So thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Well said. And what's really interesting to know when we talk about oneness is that there's knowing that there is no separation from source, no separation at all from anything. But I have a question, Stephen. They say that we're all interconnected, interrelated, and interwoven. But how would you explain it to someone to say, oh, I think I'm that chair, or I'm that tree, or how could I relate to something like that if we're all one? But how would you express that to someone that would be new to this work?
Okay, well, this reminds me of a story my third teacher said about the orange. Okay, now the orange is huge. Now, let's imagine that there's 7 or 8 billion sections. Each one of those sections of the orange is one of us. Okay, now, because we're different sections, we all think that we're the one, and we don't see the other ones. So in this section are stories, dozens of stories, hundreds of stories, and the stories keep changing. And we think that those are real and true because that we're only in this little microcosm of the macrocosm. But remember, all that's really real is the orange. And that's who we really are. You know, some people use the ocean or a drop of water, but this is another example that to go beyond the individual aspect of who you think you are. And when you realize that you are part of this, and therefore everything that happens around you, to you, is for you. So the point is, when you don't like something or someone, remember that they're part of you. So the focus is to love everything. Whatever comes into your awareness or experiences, say thank you. Yes, and thank you, and see what the meaning is, and see how you can reconnect, self-inquire into the one.
So what I also like to think about when I say thank you or be grateful is to coming back to a steady, stable foundation, because the ego has its own agenda. It wants to accomplish certain things. It doesn't want to have loss or be annihilated. And it just really does not want to lose. So it's going to do everything in its power to keep you trapped, to keep you in that way of the mythia, believing that whatever is outside is true. And when you recognize that and you say, okay, thank you for that, and whatever it is, sometimes it's difficult to say that, but when you do that, you're not getting caught up in the drama and the trauma of all the things going on. So what we say then, when you say thank you, please, I understand, even when you understand something, but because you're using your ego to say, I understand, but just that you can just breathe through it and just relax into it and be silent for a moment. And then things just start moving, start expressing, because it's hard to speak to someone who, let's say, was drinking, who's a drunk, or, what good is that going to do, because they're not coming from a stable place. So just as a normal everyday, just coming from a normal place of not anger, not, spewing off something or thinking something so negative. So what you do is you're relaxing into it, and then you could speak from that place. Does that make sense?
That's perfect. Okay, so great. So what it is, it's about everything. No matter what the situation, it's yes and thank you. Now, you don't know why you're saying it, because here we used to live in Chicago. So imagine this. Well, here's another one that happened to us. We were on the mountain. We got a brand new electric car. And we're going over the mountain, and our car runs out of electricity. So instead of saying whatever you're going to say, oh shit, or whatever the case may be, which you can say, but then let it go and let go of the resistance. And because letting go, because when you're in resistance, when you're in anger, when you're any of these things, all it's going to do is perpetuate itself over and over and over again. And you're going to stay in this vortex, this loop. But when you say yes, even though, and thank you, you don't know why you're saying it. But what it does, it stops the negative reaction instantaneously. So no matter what happens, someone else said, say thank you. Say, the simplest lesson in the world is say thank you for this. Someone does something to you, no matter what it is, say thank you, because you're not in resistance. And then what it is, you have the possibility of letting it flow. And when you're in resistance, you're like this. Okay, you can only hold, and it's forceful. And when you let go, which isn't easy, when you let go of the resistance, all there is this. And in this moment, that's when, in the story, that's when the healing comes by. That's when you can go self-inquire and go within. But when you're in anger, You can never go into a meditation. You can never go into silence, because remember, silence is the language of the universe. So thank you. That was really beautiful.
So in the story that Stephen's describing about the car, we did get help, and we had a friend nearby that actually came by to pick us up.
Synchronistically. And that's another thing. When you let go of the resistance, miracles happen, because miracles are a natural way of life. Okay. We had a friend that was a few miles away and picked us up, and everything was happily ever after.
It worked out fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great story.
So, and these are things will come up in life, everyday life. You know, you may get a flat tire, or, you know, you hear that your daughter isn't feeling well, or your son or somebody is sick. People pass away. You know, we're always hearing about different movie stars that pass away. And it's just how are you feeling about that? How are you relating to that? And just recognize how you feel. And then there's also that dissolving those feelings. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're letting go of the resistance.
Let go of your states of mind. Yes.
Your states of mind. So, you know, it could be about a state of mind is like frustration or anger or resentment. You know, it's along those categories. It could also be something positive. It could be something of joy. But just remember, in opposites, when you have duality, that you're just going from one extreme to the other extreme. And the idea is to have a sense of neutrality, a sense of that, yes, that was great, that was blissful. But knowing too that if you're in that, not a state of bliss, but just experiencing the joy, for example, that there's also the chance and probability you'll experience the opposite of that. Like one day you'll have a great day, and the next day, oh, that didn't go so well. But even so, you can always be thankful. You know, they always say, what do they say? Be thankful even for your enemies.
Right.
Be thankful
right.
for it all.
Your worst enemy is your best friend. And, you know, it didn't make any sense to me. Or something that Kreen Nanda, my second teacher, said. He said, whenever you're in a situation, let's say a bad relationship or a bad job, and the first thing you want to do is quit or get out of it. And that was it. And what he said is, never leave a situation like that. Never. Because what's going to happen, it's going to repeat over and over again until it doesn't. And one of my favorite words is pau. That's a Hawaiian word, means completion, over. So what he said, which made no sense to me at all, is when you're in a bad relationship, heal the relationship or heal the situation with your boss. And then if you choose to leave, then leave. But then you're leaving out from a higher place. Situations happened like all the people. I was in a relationship, and what it was is I still loved the person. Okay, I'm not in love with the person. Don't necessarily want to spend it, but it's over. I don't want to repeat the same mistake over and over again. And look how lucky I got. Okay, and then the other situation with the job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and thank me. So another thing is in the job. Instead of leaving the job, because I had trouble with authority over and over again with the boss, it just changed. And then I realized that it wasn't about the authority, it was about me. So then I let go of it and said, it's all good. And I wound up leaving the job. Actually, I stayed there for a while. And eventually I left the job just because I found another opportunity was better. So that's always what it's about. So that was really great.
Very good. And at this point, we want to take a quick break. So we'll be right back in just a short while. Thank you. Stay with us.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK-DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Moment to Moment on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. I'm Sharon Berkowitz, along with my co-host and husband, Stephen Berkowitz. So welcome back, everyone. So the next part of this we'd like to talk about is, what is our true purpose? People say, well, what am I here for? What is really going on? What is the deeper meaning of all of this? Maybe I have a job, maybe I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a grandmother or grandfather, and a sister, brother. And really, what am I doing here? Am I being neighborly? Or there's so many different roles that we have here. But Stephen, can you explain what our true purpose is?
Okay, well, this is something we touched on earlier. The thing is, when everything is a paradox, the paradox is going from this level to beyond that level. So in the level that Sharon was talking about was, we all think we have a purpose, and our purpose constantly is changing. It's all about duality. It's all about polarity. 1 minute you're feeling this way, and then the opposite moment you're feeling the exact opposite. So none of those are really true. It's like the Buddhists say, it's all transient. So those are real and true because our mind believes them to be real and true. But the truth is, remember to just think what's beginningless and endless. It never changes. You see, most people say everything always changes. Constant change is one of the laws and orders of the universe or science. And yes, it's true from the level they're talking about. But the level that we're talking about is Ayurvedic Vedanta. And what it means is oneness. Now, in this oneness, nothing changes. Since the beginning of time till the end of time, which, knowing, again, time is the second biggest illusion, is nothing changes. So we only have one purpose, is to re-identify with that which we are. Now, a person like a disappearance of the universe, what was his name again?
Gary Renard.
Gary Renard. Okay, and I don't want to,
wrote the book.
And what it is when we know who we are, and when we reconnect as we are, because there's no really reconnection. It's just about knowing, awakening to who you really are. Is there is no universe. There's no this, there's no that. Because what it is about going into a deep, deep place where there's no time. It's just being in the state of pure oneness, pure bliss. So that's just, so the thing is, our purpose is just to remember, to awaken to who we really are.
Yeah, that's the absolute consciousness, pure awareness. And knowing that is who you truly are. And yes, you may have different roles that you play, that you're doing different things, husband, wife, and things are going on in the world that we look out to, that are happening. But the idea is to know who you truly are. And your true purpose is discovering who you truly are, knowing that, integrating. So the integration comes because you've really, as they say, grokked it, you got it. And even the idea that you say, oh yeah, I get that, I understand all that. Well, that's ego talking. The ego says, I don't need that, or, I've heard that all before, or you're not telling me anything new, anything like that. That's all ego driven, ego motivation, ego consciousness. But when we're in that state, like Stephen was talking about, that relaxed state, just taking simple breaths and being in silence, that's the truth. That's the absolute consciousness. And things arise out of that. And then that's who we are in human form, human beings, is just taking its place and letting things unfold and understanding that. And are you really creating anything in this world?
No.
On what level is that?
You see, you're only creating things when you believe it to be true, because creating is again about this or that. So there's nothing to actually beyond that. This is took me a while to grok. There is no free will.
Just no free will.
Right.
So what level is that being spoken on?
That's beyond the mind, because
beyond the mind.
Because
correct.
The thing is, this took me a while, because we all say we have free will to choose this and to choose that. And it's true on the level of perception. Because when you say you have free will for this or that, that implies not one, but two or more. Okay? And therefore, it's not about being one. Because the thing is, I tell people, take a pencil and paper and try to figure this out. It's only about one, not two, not three.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is no good, there is no bad, there is no this, there is no that. Except I just tell people the only thing I know is real is my wife. So, but I'm not sure that's even the truth, but it still is in my story.
In his story, right? Because it's all about the one person, even though there's 7.8 billion people out in the world, but there's really only oneness. And how could that possibly be? Well, it's like even what the I Ching says, the universe centers around around yourself.
And like we always say, is we be one. That's what some of our logos have been,
Mm-hmm.
and we be one.
Mm-hmm. Right, we be one.
Because in the we, it's not about duality. It's about knowing that in our story, there's a we, but it's not real, because all that's real is one.
So, but by saying that you have a perception about something, it could also be a misperception. So you could take a look at it again.
Aren't all perceptions misperceptions?
So it is coming from the mind, because the mind is projecting something outward. So this is true, that it would be a misperception. But in knowing that, you can make another choice. You can choose again and again. But knowing that when you have that choice, that it could be even just a preference, instead of just, well, I hate that, or I don't like that, or, I love that necklace on you, or just something along those lines. But it could be just more preference, instead of like, oh, I really want that, or I desire that. Or,
exactly. Because it's okay to have a thought,
mm-hmm.
but a thought without a perception or without identifying with it, or emotion, just floats right by. But when, like exactly what you're saying, when you have a thought and you're holding on to it, then just like with the white oneness of who we are about superimposition, it stays there. So let these thoughts, these attachments, identifications, just float by. Sharon, we use an example too, is just putting it on a leaf in the river. So as you're putting your thought onto a leaf in the river, just merrily, just watch it go.
This is life is about a dream. It's very if you look at the sky, for example, and the sky is really pure blue, there's no clouds in it, so that could be your white screen, for example. And then all of a sudden it gets really cloudy, or you see lightning. So let's say you see lightning. Where is the lightning occurring right now?
In your mind.
In your mind, exactly. And thunder could be making noise.
Is that happening in your mind too?
It's all in your mind. That's right. Just like watching even a movie. You can get caught up in the movie. Let's say you're watching even a comedy. So you're laughing. You're laughing outward. Let's say you're watching even a horror movie and you get scared.
Like Jaws?
Like Jaws, for example. And which scared a lot of people into believing, that, it's not safe to go into the water. There goes Jaws. But what it is that, and then we have a perception that we created about it. We had a feeling, and the body mind complex doesn't know what's real and what's not real. It's just experiencing something exponentially. And so when you understand that it's just something, it's like the great cover up. It's like the cover up over the sky with the clouds and so forth, or the rain coming down. So everything is being superimposed onto something like the sky, and also your example of the white screen. So I just wanted to have more clarification on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's really it's wonderful too. So it's just always about remembering. Again, something that when I was growing up in sixth grade, I remember saying that science is something that's repeatable and observable in a laboratory. Okay, and then everything else So it was objective. Everything else wasn't real, didn't count. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. Because what about subjectivity? Well, that's not real. You can't produce it in a laboratory. Remember, this is a long time ago. And actually, in truth, it's just the opposite. Because everything that's subjectivity is repeatable and observable doing this. So that's what we really have to do, is let go of the things that are objectable and finite and go into that deeper and deeper place. So, and again, the one thing, that's what the point was. See, in Western philosophy, in Western science, they put all the different pieces into a puzzle, and then they figure out what is it all about? What's it all about? And that's what they do. So then they create theories and other theories, and they do this. But in the Eastern philosophy, and again, it's part of the story, they look at one point, and I call it a bindu point. Okay, in that one point is everything. So the thing is, there's only one thing to learn. Who am I? Why am I here? What's it all about? What's underneath? What's underneath? What's underneath? So any one of these things will take you to the same place, taking the deep breath. And when you learn that one thing, which is everything and nothing, but everything, in that one point, that's all you'll ever have to need to know. So what I focus on now is learning one thing. And whenever I'm in resistance, whenever I'm in this or that, to remember, take a deep breath, go into silence, and to remember who I am. And that's the answer. So thank you.
Yes, the who am I question, remembering yourself, and that's knowing who you truly are. That's knowing your true purpose, and knowing that you are light, that you are expression through a physical being, through a physical vessel, all emanating and coming through that vessel. But your true self and your true nature is the light within you. And that never dies.
Right. It's beautiful. And someone says, what does that look like? To me, the only way I can express it is when you see a movie like, whether it's Ghost, whether it's with the Muggles, Harry Potter, when you see when a person transitions, and again, remember, it's not really a transition. Sharon was saying, passing away, it's not really a transition. All that's real is there. So you see that little thing spark just go away. And that's the closest thing I can say to what it is. It's that spark that's within all of us, okay? And goes back, it reunites into the one. Again, there's no reuniting, but it's just about being awake and remembering.
Just like the orange you were talking about.
Right.
All the sections of the orange coming back together.
Or a drop of water in the ocean.
And even though there's no separation, it never really did occur, because again, that's just a story. It's just a mythia.
Wow. Which reminds me about something from my yogic days with Kriyananda. And they did, when you walked into a place, they do a ceremony. In Sanskrit, they repeat it over and over and over again until it's silent. And it's Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasyon Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate Om Purnamadaha Purnamida Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasyon Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. So they keep repeating this as they're entering the room. And what this means, there's many different kinds of translations. But what that means is that is perfect. This is perfect. From that perfection emanates this perfection. Yet in the ocean of perfection surges the waves of perfection, yet nothing is ever lost. So that was something that really had a significance to me. And as I go deeper into it, there's nothing to lose because there's nothing. There is nothing to lose because it's all one.
And that's a wonderful analogy. And I like the idea of the waves. The waves rise up from the ocean, thinking they're individual and unique. But then what they do is they come back into the ocean. And it never left the ocean because it's still part of the ocean. It's still the ocean. Right.
It's kind of like, too, it's saying an ice or an iceberg. An iceberg is an iceberg. But when it gets hot, it melts, and it doesn't know that it's melting. So there's different stages of the ice, but yet each stage, it transitions. Just like you said, someone passes on or transitions. They're going from one stage to another stage to another stage, but yet it's all part of the one because there's only one. It just doesn't realize it as it's doing it because it identifies with being rain, identifies with being a mist, with being ice, with being the water. So that's all it is. Like you told a funny story about the fish in the water. Maybe you could share that story.
Sure. So real quick, Stephen brought up the fish story, so I will definitely share that. So one fish is talking to another fish, and they're in this, this place in the water. And the one fish was saying, "Oh, it's it's such a beautiful day." And yes, the other fish says, "Yeah, it is a really nice day." But the other fish says, "You know what? But it feels kind of cold in here. The water feels cold." And then the other fish says, "What water?"
It's funny.
Yeah. So it's like consciousness. It's like we're in it, but do we recognize it? Do we realize it? Do we really know who we truly are? Have we integrated that? And I want to bring up another point though, too, about lives. How I deal with that. Experience something that's been bugging me, or I can't sleep, or I heard this again and something isn't right with whatever that is. So when you have stress in life, what's the one thing, Stephen, that you always talk about? Everything is
in your mind.
And how do you deal with something that's in your mind? Say, I love it. I love this. Everything is love. Right. Because that's what it is. That's what it truly is love.
And that's
and bringing
really
it
wonderful.
to that love vibration.
Because instead of doing what most all of us do is go into it. When you say yes and thank you, when you let go of the resistance, when you go into the flow, and whatever it is you're letting go of this. And this creates the opportunity for you to go back into synchronicity, into going back into what is. So it's really a great story. Is whether it's stress or this or that, it doesn't make a difference because all the different words, they're all the same. They're different but the same because it doesn't matter what it is when you're out of alignment. I used to say years ago, stop, pivot, or readjust. Or like you said, how can I see this differently? And then when you do this, you're going out of the resistance and out of the fear because as you're holding on, one of my friend used to say that they loved being in resistance. It was, that's what it was, joyful resistance. And I laughed and laughed and laughed because they knew that they were right and they didn't want to let go of the truth. So many years after this, the person told me, something? They said I was right, but that's not the point. They said that they let go of the resistance and they could finally see it after many, many years. Because I didn't really say anything when they said joyful resistance. I just laughed because it was funny.
Yeah, and people sometimes get so caught up in their habits or their patterning, and they say, "Oh, this is happening again," or this is happening, and it's just another face that is showing that, the job is similar to what was happening at the last job, or the relationship is similar to what's going on in the next relationship. That's because it hasn't been transcended, if you want to use that word. In other words, raising up the energy vibration of it and doing your inquiry to find out really why that was attracted to you, and releasing and letting go those energy vibrations that don't serve you. And as you let those vibrations go, dissolving the states of mind, then that also helps you to have new, different experiences, new perceptions, and just an abundance of possibilities. Things that you may not even thought of will start coming your way. In other words, when you're not in resistance and maybe you're in meditation, and you can be in meditation just taking a shower or mowing the lawn. When you're in that meditation, the ideas start coming to you. You start recognizing something that you didn't think of. And then that is really causing a synchronicity to occur. It's like, oh, now that sounds good. And that's just another perception. And just having that, giving yourself permission to do that.
You said a couple of really wonderful things. I mean, a lot. But anyways, so what it is too, it's about patterning. Okay, patterning and conditioning. So the same thing happens over and over and over again. Like if you're dating someone and each time it's about a distrust or this or that or whatever it may be. The thing is, you back to a job, it doesn't make a difference what it is. Because I call that dandelion. As you get the first place, it's never about I think it's okay, which is okay. And remember that. So it's about. So what we have to do is go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then like they say, the layers of an onion, going deeper and letting go of each one. But you know what happens when you let go of all the layers of the onion?
What happens when you let go of all the layers of the onion?
There's nothing left.
There's nothing there.
So the thing is about going into your conditioning and realizing that we're patterned and conditioned to all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's really what it's about. So it's really a point. And to remember, if we could go back and write down the issues that we have, what we'll do is we'll find out that they're reoccurring issues. Okay, whether it's your three biggest issues, generally speaking, are health, money, and relationships. So if you take those three things, write them on three different pieces of paper, and saying, what are your issues with these three different things? And then you see, well, I don't have enough, or this or that. You go in and find out what your patterning and conditioning are. And you go over it again and again and again, and then you can pinpoint them. And that way you'll have an idea of what to do and how to do it.
And you can work with someone that could help you to do this work. So it's not as if you have to do it all by yourself. If you need to, you could reach out, and there are people that would be able to do this.
Example, like my wife. And this reminds me of a point. The thing is that this is amazing. This is, out of everything else, this is the single most important thing. My wife wrote a book. Okay.
It's called Light Wisdom, Awakening to Your True Self.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon.
Yeah, and she did a unbelievable. And what we say that every single person that we come in contact with that might be interested, we say the way to tell a good book is you open the book to any page at all, read 2 or 3 sentences. We ask them to do it out loud if it's not an issue, and see if it's pertinent. If it's not pertinent, put the book back down because it's not for you at this time. And I'd say well over 90% of the people, conservatively, all say, aha. Now, we may not know what it's about, but they identify with it. And I suggest that you buy this book because we could use the money. And another thing too, to end this too. So I mean, it's, again, light wisdom, awakening to your divine self, your true self. What more could anyone want?
It could be your divine self as well.
Yeah, but what else is there? So if we could learn this, and if you could learn one sentence out of this and just take it and hold it and integrate it into your heart, it's worth everything that there is.
There's a lot of great nuggets in there, a lot of things to read about, and highly encourage that. And also all one conscious conversations,
which is another thing. That's
another part of this learning and growth.
This is something that Lynda, thank you for being who you are. We love you so much. And thank you for this opportunity. And so tomorrow is, they talk about the book, and it's easy because you don't have to read the chapters. Now, each one of Sharon's chapters are separate and distinct. You don't have to read one and another. So it doesn't matter where you start. And what they do to make it simple, they put it on the screen and they read from it. And then they ask people to interact with it. So if there's any questions, which everyone should have questions about it because it's really good. So I mean, ask questions about it. And this is what Sharon and Lynda do. Mm-hmm. So it's a wonderful opportunity to read the book.
More
Actually,
into this.
You get the book free this way too. Okay. And they just do every chapter, and it's really wonderful.
Yes.
So now, what Sharon's going to do is she's going to do a reading and a blessing because it's something she does amazingly well. So thank you, Sharon. And I want to thank everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. And in this blessing and in this moment, bringing you to the present moment of now, because this is all there is. This is all there truly is, your truly presence of now. And this is the essence of your being. And knowing this, that in this expression of self coming forward, that you are indeed blessed, divine, wholesome, wholeness, oneness, complete. And everything else is just coming through you, and not to be taken seriously, not to have attachments to, and just to observe that, just to be in observance of it, and not to be caught up in it. and expressing yourself in a holy way, in a more divine way, in a neighborly way that helps people to have wonderful expressions of self. And knowing that each person, each one, is truly, truly divinely blessed and guided and loved. And awaken to your divine self, knowing that you already are divine, that you already are this reality of pure oneness consciousness, evolved and true. And this we say thank you, and we're in such gratitude for all those listening, for all those comprehending this, for all those that are in tune. May you be blessed, may you be exhilarated in the knowingness that you are whole and true. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and blessings to all. Thank you for joining us today. Any further comments?
No, thank you. I just want to thank Lynda, knowing that she's on vacation, and wherever she is, I know that everything is perfect as it is. And I want to thank Todd, and especially my lovely wife, Sharon, and thank everyone out there, not out there, but everyone listening to this, because, I'm honored and I'm humbled to share. So from my heart, from our heart to your heart, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you again. And you're listening to WLTK-DB Talk Radio, Moment to Moment. Join us again next week. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.